Hello, everyone. Welcome to our presentation. I'm Luis Aguilar, and my colleague Gustavo and I are presenting this paper today for you. We are both students at the UFABC, the Federal University of ABC in Sao Paulo, Yeah, important to say that this paper is not neither Gustavo's, neither mine, research projects. We're doing different research projects for PhD programs. And this paper was done more or less 1 year ago. The idea originated 1 year ago. And this served to then propose other projects for our studies. But it is outside of any academic program to start with. The title of the paper is The Political Economy of Agri-Food Technology Systems, a Comparative Analysis of International Trade Data and Policy. The title has changed in the recent days because we're getting more theoretical at the moment. We have finished the data processing and all the other stages, and we realized that we had important things to say theoretically, and so we changed the title to this broader approach. So now I'm going to present the justification of why the paper was first proposed as a significant research project. First of all, we saw that there was a small amount of studies about the subject. I worked in agricultural development internationally, and I saw that there was really a small amount. Although lately I've seen a lot more, but still, on trade of mechanical technologies, really there's only 2 other authors that I found that are dedicated fully to that subject. And so it's an important thing, I think, that there's more people, but still important to see that there's few people doing that. And not enough sources to get information from. It's complicated to find information on the subject. Now, we also had seen that there's, on the other hand, a lot of focus on the net effects input productivity. The classical analysis of productivity in agricultural economics is very important, and of course, it has to be research, and it's possibly the more important one. However, many of these studies do not include mechanization. They focus on fertilization and pesticides and other assets, but they more or less ignore mechanization because, of course, it's very difficult. And even less about trade of mechanical technologies. There's basically not a way to include this variety there in those type of studies. So now we are risking to do it, and we think we were successful. Because of this complication, the people that's touching this subject at theoretical basis are economy theorists. The great names have always studied technology as a major explanatory variable for the economic development and business cycles and so on, as we know. So this is the situation, and that's why the agricultural economists tend to get away from that, because it's way too complex, possibly. And then, Hayami and Rutan also said there needs to be a focus on the microeconomics related to price in their theory of induced innovation. That was the key element there. And that's because in perfect markets and developed economies, that's the way to see it. Now, we are, in our paper, although we work with developed nations, advanced economies, we mainly focus on the agricultural nations. The selection is more broader. So Hayami and Rutan did Japan and the US. We're doing the whole world. So we are filling the gaps in this paper, this gap filling study, and we wanted to propose that trade in itself is a supplied, not a demand exactly. I mean, there's demand, of course, but the supply part of it is the most important one, because we don't have supply in the most remote areas of the third world. And the markets are imperfect, so yeah, that's the risk we're trying to take. And it's important for this Congress because it's the subject, right? How technology, this paper let us see how technology is sometimes manipulated, or there is a lot of politics there, and how access from the global South nations is complicated. Not much for the BRICS or the emerging markets, but for the other global South nations that are not part of these powerful groups. So, well, now I leave the word for my colleague Gustavo for him to present methodology and other parts of the study, and then I'll be back for the conclusions. Thank you. Thank you, Gustavo, for your presentation. I'll be very brief with the conclusions for us to have time to discuss further in the questions. So as a conclusions, we got that in the statistical part that we initially proposed to avoid the appearance of counterintuitive circumstances and conclusions, to make sure that we are on the right path and guide the study, the theoretical part of the study, we concluded that something intuitive at the end, right? High levels of agri-food technology trade have causal effects on financial productivity of arable land and food trade, of course. So, from all the variables we used, the strongest ones were mechanical technology for agriculture and mechanical technology for food processing. We saw that both are the strongest and more influencing variables, and the only ones that are significant in this case. However, I would have said there's other variables that could have been included in the model, but we wanted to be discreet because with all this complexity of geographical factors, it's complicated to propose detailed significance in this case. Then the other conclusions is that evolved markets are ruled by private sector policies, and the more imperfect markets in developing countries are mostly ruled by the public sector. So it means that we found that for an induction of technology adoption, the private sector is undoubtedly a lead. The less developed a country, the more the public sector has to intervene, to the level that sometimes there's not private sector at all participating in this in some African countries where governments import the equipment and they put it in the market themselves, or they give it to farmers especially. Then we wanted to say also, comparing to the technology-induced theory, that supply and demand are equally important. That is not only demand related to price internalities, it's also supplied. And so we do a balance, perhaps because of the maturity of agriculture in the later decades, with the whole world basically participating. There's a balance now in this. We want to add a balance to this theory. So technology supply is a key factor, and trade is the main way it is achieved, because tractors are a high complexity product, so it's difficult to get them to the markets, and not all countries can produce. Basically only Turkey, Brazil, China and India are producing tractors in the global south, and some other, but really little. Mexico we know is for the North American market especially, so it's high complexity equipment only in those countries. And so our conclusions we saw match with the approach of Schumpeter to focus on the markets. It was what we found prior to having studied Schumpeter. Okay, so I'll leave you with that, and let's go to the questions part. Thank you very much.